Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brightworks and another match of Beyond All Reason. Today I'm bringing you a map that I actually have never seen before, and maybe you haven't either. It's called Salmiakki version 1.2, and it's going to be, well, a bit of an interesting one. We'll take a look around the map and see what interesting features it has for us here after we meet our team leaders. So spawning over here on the western side, I'm representing the red team as a red Cortex commander, matching the color scheme of the Cortex faction in general here. It's teleologic. Going into a bot lab already here makes a lot of sense. Those res bots obviously going to be quite potent for eating up all this useless flora all over the place here and converting it into usable energy for the Cortex revolution. Now spawning over here on the eastern side as a Cortex commander as well, but representing the blue team, it's going to be Bormel. Spawning here as the blue team leader on the northeastern side, of the blue team's side of this map. All right, so bit of an interesting one here. Salmiakki, trying to teach myself that name. Today we're looking at a 5v5, as you may have noticed over here on the right hand side. 5 commanders enter, 5 commanders leave. Covered that 5v5 last time. It was a bit of a weird video. The title and the thumbnail were weird anyways, but if you saw that one, it was a 5v5. That one was played on FTL, Faster Than Light, which is a much more familiar map to me than this one is. But I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. So already I'm seeing quite a few different pathways here, and I'll go ahead and draw out what I'm looking at. So already you can go up this hillside, sort of down into this valleyway, or you can come off in this direction, either up in this direction or down around in this direction. Gives you a lot of opportunity paths to harass around on the flanks of the enemy team over there. If you're playing this in an 8v8 format, I imagine you'd have commanders spawning up on these high grounds right here, which would be pretty interesting and make it very easy to defend this in the early game, because you could just put one LLT down and it would basically keep you safe from any of that early scout harassment. It's going to be more complicated though, as spider bots and artillery get involved, so that'll be interesting to see. Out in the middle of the map, it looks like there's some high grounds right here, which might be worth protecting. Maybe putting a factory up here would be well worth it. And then there's these low grounds where I don't believe ticks are going to be able to cross. Yeah, doesn't look like it. That tick hiding from us behind that tree over there. Doesn't look like the ticks are going to be able to cross these rivers right here, which does mean that this area is subdivided somewhat from the Armada commanders that otherwise would be sending their early scout bots across the map here to try and do a little bit of damage. Grunts have gone across already here for Teleologic, who's trying to find an opening right now. Going to be running right into Name and Loser, as well as Max Chaos. So maybe this grunt can find an opening right here, but it's going to be tricky, especially with those commanders lurking in the mire here. Now here's an open path. This, oh no, actually this one's headed right towards O'Hara's commander as well here. Looks like this is going to be quite difficult. Yeah. A lot of choke points in this map, and indeed we already have a mine layer setting some light mines over here that are practically invisible in that grass right there. That's interesting. Grunt. AFK in the field. For its own safety, it's gone AFK. If actually that grunt had been microed, it probably would have died by now, so probably to the better, for its own benefit that it hasn't moved forward. I'm sure we're going to see that explosion. I wanted to see it, but I'm sure that grunt's going to take one step forward and realize, oh, I've got something pressure sensitive beneath my foot. Already though, Bormel definitely applying a whole bunch more pressure all over the place. We do have another grunt moving on over on this right hand side. There's an LLT over here, but that's basically the only thing guarding all this, and that Mex is definitely not underneath that LLT's guard from all the way out on this side. You can see the firing range from that LLT right there. Oh, yep, there we go. Yeah, grunt does take down a metal extractor, so that's quite nice here. Indeed, there's a story told in the aftermath of the wreckage. Blue grunt stepped on a landmine and no longer has much to say here. It's the yellow commander. Killer Storm expanding very slowly, but making good use of these light mines here to keep the harassment limited to various choke points, and setting out these little strips in order to keep little passerbyers like grunts or pawns, not ticks I suppose, but any of those other lighter T1 infantry units from going too far across the map over here. A little bit of a slower map too. There's not a whole lot of metal to be gained over here. It looks like there's pretty much these little 2.0 metal extractor spots up here, but it's not really like there's a whole bunch to fight over on the low ground. There's one metal spot apiece, and you could even probably gain both of these without super heavily contesting one another here. It makes me wonder, yeah, where the fight is going to devolve into. Now this northern side is looking a little bit weaker. UKF went for a really early geothermal. It's going to be tremendous for his power generation here. Oh, also going for quite a lot of build power in the back. Yeah, going to be tremendous for power generation, but right now, with the wind speed plummeting Yeah, everybody is slowed down quite a bit here. Across the board, we look pretty much like we've ground to a halt. We do have a whole bunch of grunts. No pawns actually available for max chaos here. There's a whole bunch down south as well. Wouldn't mind seeing a couple of these split off and sent around to try and do some damage over here. There's a completely exposed pathway into the back lines right here for the red team. Certainly max chaos could send 1 or 2 units across in that direction and snag an excellent kill or 2 on a couple of metal extractors. Looks like a grunt will be spied over here, engaging against some of those rover craft. It'll blast both of them to shreds. It looks like those rovers also spied Bormel's commander, who's taking a nice long walk all the way across the front of this map right here. There's a bunch of metal extractors that aren't taken yet, but it looks like there's a constructor on its way over to go grab those, so that's quite nice. Yeah, it feels like 2.0 and 2.0 for this little metal patch right here. It doesn't really feel like it's all too valuable. Interesting, this hillside is sort of one-sided as well. You're protected from this angle, but not so much from this angle over here. Makes for a bit of an interesting... Yeah, a little bit of an interesting matchup right there. Thugs trying to push forward right here for teleologic. Not entirely sure if those thugs are going to be able to achieve all too much. I think maybe if we have these res bots moved up to the front line, maybe we'll be able to resurrect those thugs and keep them in the fight and start building that infinite army, that super menacing early game thug push that oftentimes definitely been the bane of my existence, but certainly has taken down many a commander as well. Grunts are pulled to start attacking some of these medium tanks. The medium tanks don't really care too much. The light laser fire just flash welding little bits of metal off of there. Maybe flash vaporizing is a better term for what happens when those laser rifles hit the sides of those tanks. The reality of it is not very much at all. Grunt trying to find a pathway through here still, but there are plenty of light laser turrets, so at the very least that grunt will be cleaned up nicely here. And Bormel controlling a tremendous portion of this map at this point. Yeah, we're talking about almost the entire northeastern section of this map is under the blue player's control singularly. So it's going to be also equivalently up to the blue player to go up against 3 different players, all controlling different parts of this map here. Bormel's definitely going to be in for, yeah, quite the battle here in order to actually control this much ground. Now there are a whole bunch of rocket bots making their way up to the hillside here, going to try and help the commander of this blue force try and push through the line over here. Certainly going to mean, though, that any aggression cutting through this front is going to be fairly effective. I mean, you can imagine a couple of pawns sent through here by Nano Warrior, a couple of grunts sent through by Killer Storm. Anybody sending any amount of aggression through is going to be met with essentially a diversion of forces from the blue player. And it'll pull from the overall amount of forces that he has to continue that push with. Essentially an overextension. Nice control by Max Chaos over here. D-guns down a whole bunch of those units, catches a few more. Using that well, I guess not an LLT, light laser cannon, LLC, Limited Liability Corporation. Max Chaos, sorry, getting carried away here. Max Chaos using that hand cannon in order to blast away a couple of those thugs, a couple of those grunts, a couple of those pawns, and using the D-gun to clean up all the rest of it. Resbot's out here, though, for teleologic, definitely making this a lot more efficient here. Yeah, Max Chaos knows he can't reclaim. That's actually a pretty smart move. Uses the D-gun to clear out some of that wreckage that, at the very least, it's not going to be all too available for the red commander here. Meanwhile, a breakthrough of forces. Yeah, medium tanks plunging into the heart of the tan player right now. They know, wait a second, there's no units over here. We might as well take advantage of that and send ourselves on a little bit of a warpath. So indeed they do. Those brutes gonna shrug off the laser fire here from that LLT quite nicely. Getting to work on basically everything over here. Ooh, okay. Targeting the economy over here. I don't mind it, but taking down that LLT would basically free you to do whatever you so please. Yep, wind turbine's gonna go down at the very least. LLT gonna get scratched up. I don't know if that tank wins that fight. Definitely can get away with killing that metal extractor, though. Nicely done right there. That's gonna be 3 metal extractors and some wind turbines going down right here for Nano Warrior. Not the end of the world right now, especially with this many advanced solar panels coming up at the backline, but it does hurt a little bit. Every ounce of metal coming in per second results in tons and tons more metal in the late game here. Meanwhile, Bormel loses his commander, costs the orange commander his entire army of grunts over here, but it's not like he really needs them there. After all, he's ready to transition into a Rocketeer army here, an Aggravator army. Yeah, sending the commander forward to resurrect, I think, is probably the right idea here. We've got a very low LLT, and Aggravator's coming up right now for the blue player. So like I said, though, the blue player is spread very thin right now. He's got the full frontal engagement over here on the southern side, now dealing with some tanks pushing in over here, and it means that UKF is completely free to eat up this commander's wreckage, sending thousands and thousands of metal back towards his base. Could even go for a T2 transition at this point here, using this metal fund, but I think pumping out a whole bunch of units, also going to be quite a potent strategy here as well. I don't mind it in the slightest. Little breakthrough, though. Counterattack over on this side. Looks like a bunch of grunts find an opening in the armor right now and going to punch through. A little bit stalled out right now as there is an engagement. The Teleologic is busy microing over here. A couple of thugs firing across the river and a couple of Centurions mixed with maces. The Centurion's so beefy, having the thugs, that is, having such a hard time trying to beat those super, super heavy Armada laser boys. The Centurion, essentially a super armored grunt. Very good in all the same ways that the grunt is, aside from mobility. It's the one area where it lacks quite tremendously. Firepower it definitely has, and plenty though, and also plenty of range, plenty of damage, as far as T1 goes anyway. It's all comparative, of course. T2 lab here is up and running for the blue player, and indeed Bormel going for that T2 economy here as well. Looks like he actually bought a constructor and started up the T2 economy, but hasn't quite gotten himself into the proper T2 compositions yet. Janus and Lightning Tank holding the front lines right here. Janus goes down, but not before firing a killer missile directly into that composition of those little rocket bots over here. And indeed, those T1 rocket bots going to fly away out into the distance. Gauntlet coming up right now. It's very low on health, and it's also built on top of a bunch of a bunch of light landmines. Should any of those explode, I think that Gauntlet would probably go up with them. Killer Storm definitely in a little bit of trouble, and it's essentially all his own doing. Agitator being used as essentially a reinforcing center point to this defensive chokehold over here, this defensive stranglehold over here by Caligula 123. Going to be using that Agitator to, at the very least, fire away at a whole lot of these units that are otherwise stepping a little bit too far forward. Rocketeers still continuing their aggression, though. Downright oppressive here. We've seen that tweak units where they... Oh yeah, looks like the Gauntlet popped as well here. We've seen that tweak units that makes these Rocketeers shoot a whole bunch... shoot their rockets a whole lot faster. The rockets themselves travel faster. The actual fire rate isn't increased, but the... in fact, I think it's decreased, but the travel time of the rockets is quite a bit lower. Makes them quite potent. Big grunt run by over here. Oh, I'd love to see a self-destruct in that tower. Always extremely difficult to try and judge how and when you should actually go for that sort of a thing, but anyway, either way, I think if anyone's going to pull it off, it's probably one of the team leaders. Are we going to pump out some Fiends? No, we're making Sheldon. I think with this army pushing in here, I think Fiends are probably going to be the better option here, but instead, going to be going for a radar bot, going to be going for a jammer bot, going to be going for some of those Sheldon, looking to get into the long game here as quickly as possible, and I think I agree with Nano Warrior. Sending these units across right now before the T2 are built in mass is absolutely the right idea here, but I don't think that the red team has the scouting information. I don't think they know exactly how much of an advantage they have currently with this position, with this T1 army, with all of this exposed on the northern front over here. Certainly could be quite tremendous. Now, I guess there's hounds down south that have been spotted here, so maybe that's the hesitance that we're sensing right now from the Orange Commander. Not wanting to move those units into a whole T2 army, but that T2 army isn't available yet. It's not, doesn't exist. It's a completely theoretical T2 army. Hounds doing their good work here, tearing apart a lot of this T1 with brutal efficiency. Love that we're using those in their Gauss mode. It's also a really good plan here. Finally, this T1 army clashes. Grunts jumping on top of those aggravators over here. Definitely right where you want them. Radar bot goes down as well. Aggravators firing away at whatever they can. Trying desperately to break any of these units that they find, but already T2 reinforcements are pulled over here, and they're going to catch this entire T1 army, meaning that all that juicy metal will be left right at the hands of the Blue Commander, who's already gone up to that T2 lab and is now ready to start going into a proper T2 composition. We're building 9 Sheldons, to the Augur, to the Deceiver, the radar and radar jammer. Looks like we've got a nice helpful arrow here that was drawn by Nano Warrior, but I'll go ahead and clear the screen as we take a look at this little medium tank run by. Looks like a couple of stouts have found their way onto the enemy territory right now. Teleologic trying to clean those up. Definitely has the forces to clean them up, but medium tanks are always a bit of a trick. You're never quite sure exactly how quick you're going to be able to clean up those tanks, because eventually Yeah, they might just reach your backline eco before you have a chance to actually get rid of all of them. Caligula, holding the Caligula, I think it's Caligula. Going to be holding the top of this hillside here. It's not a bad hillside, don't get me wrong. It's got 2 of these agitators on top of it, which are always annoying to deal with. Stout's trading out so efficiently, firing backwards like this. Is there AoE on this attack? Oh, there is a little AoE on that attack. That's funny. Yeah, I guess the clustered together grunts are going to actually have a hard time dealing with this Stout. Okay, well, 1 medium tank. Who would win? About 40 grunts or 1 medium tank. Beamer turret up, the crowning jewel of the defensive setup right here for the purple commander. And I love it. Beamer turret's extremely powerful. Definitely warding off a lot of this alongside that commander over here. Max Chaos using that D-gun to zone some of these tanks into the static defenses over here. We have another LLT up, but we have tons and tons of LLTs right now for Shmi Wen. And yeah, those LLTs are definitely threatening. They're not the biggest thing in the world, but they're definitely threatening. Little bombers over here, missing their targets. Okay, that's a bit weird. Not sure exactly how they're missing all these targets right here. There are sniping metal extractors here and there, though. I hadn't thought about this before, but I guess for 150 metal, sniping a couple of metal extractors, 2, 3, 4 metal extractors, actually probably pays back pretty well. It's the 50 metal per metal extractor, which is a third of the cost, and then however long the metal extractor is down also factors into that cost, right? So you know what? These bombers are actually getting a tremendous amount of value. Yeah, so definitely have subtracted at least a couple hundred metal off of the orange team by this point. And it's not the end of the world. It's not devastating, although this bombing run certainly could be. Yeah, that's a lot of wind turbines all clustered together around a whole bunch of energy converters. My goodness. Oh, well, okay. Bomber's having a bit of a hard time here. I think they'll figure it out here eventually, but yeah, having a bit of a turning radius problem. Never mind, I guess. They're just going to be eaten alive from the construction turrets over here. There we go. I think we definitely need to just choose different targets right now. This bombing run could have done so much more damage if only those bombers had dropped their bombs. Boy, talk about indecisive. These bombers have no idea what they actually want to do. Build power, wind turbines. None of the above, apparently, is the selection that we're going for right now. Feels like it definitely is suboptimal bombing run on that front. Fat Boy over here, cleaning up a whole bunch of these T1 forces. Always difficult to push into one of those Fat Boys with T1. Feels very, very inefficient, because it is. Ooh. Well, a little bit of friendly fire there as the Fat Boy also takes out a constructor here for the blue player. I believe that Fat Boy must have been handed over here by Shmi Wen. We also have some crawling bombs that are being produced here, so Green Commander definitely looking to do some cheeky strategies here. These bombers are still being a menace in the backline right now. For whatever reason, UKF is not producing any anti-air towers. We're going for trashers over here, so I mean, I guess eventually that will do the job, but we need to not send them away from our base. Anti-air trucks eventually sent over by a teammate will finally take care of those bombers right here, but what a mess in the backline for UKF. Just been dealing with damage on all fronts here. Commander barely escapes with its life. It's resurrected life. It's second chance at life, you could say. Going to be retreating off the lines right now as the remainder of these T1 forces push forward here. The Orange Commander definitely in a troublesome way right now. Loads of T1 bombers now sent out in a mission. It's a mission of vengeance. As soon as they find one of those flak truck, though, these will all be melted away in a single blast. You don't want to target a single spot like that, typically. Almost always better to spread out the attacks in a big AoE area. Sort of carpet bombing area. Usually that ends up working out pretty well. Sheldon have been built up in pretty menacing numbers at this point here for Brumel. And yeah, we've all seen those Sheldon. Once they get built up in pretty good numbers, they can really start to take over a game. Certainly making the match much more difficult here to win for the red team. Not going to be able to win it on T1 at the very least. They're going to have to upgrade their quality of units here, which they're a little bit slower to, I will note. Yeah, we have a T2 lab out here for Teleologic. He's going up to T2. We have the T2 lab for Caligula. Also starting at that T2 here, but a little bit slower on the draw with the T2, and it's actually going to put the red team in a little bit of a back foot situation here, yeah. Multiple armies advancing, multiple siege armies advancing right now. We have the Sheldon pushing on this northern front here with the Fat Boy, taking down a whole bunch of these res bots, which is always nice. Always feels like a free win whenever you take down some res bots. And we have these Sheldon pushing forward here. Dying to a lightning turret for some reason. Not sure why they weren't firing at that, but either way. Killer Storm in a lot of trouble actually goes down to the submersible bombs here. The commander sniped by the tumbleweeds here, even leaving a wreckage. How kind the tumbleweed is. That's a pretty hilarious snipe right there. Not often do we see commanders killed by those crawling bombs, the amphibious bombs, but there you go. Brand new world record. Kill a commander with an amphibious bomb, speedrun, any percent, glitchless. More and more bombers being sent out over here. Oh, I'm so concerned these bombers are going to fly over an AA truck, though. Tons of those were produced right here by the Tan player. Yeah, those bombers, man. They're falling in vast number. They're all grouped up. Oh, no. All those bombers weren't spread out right here, so Naaman Loser loses all of those bombers here. It's not the end of the world. There's still a massive amount of medium tanks headed towards this base right here, and certainly they could do some serious damage. We're talking if they pop the commander, they could take down the T2 lab, the air lab, basically everything. It's certainly possible that they could rid this base of the world, or vice versa. A lot of them firing at those SAM turrets. Not exactly an ideal use of firepower. SAM turrets not where you really want to be spending all that. Banshee's targeting down the advanced metal extractor here instead of the commander. I don't think that was the plan. I think we definitely meant to target the commander here. AA would be pretty nice, I think, at this point. There we go. We finally retarget to the commander here. Kind of. Sort of. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that advanced exploiter here are going to be more than enough to blast down those gunships here. Slowly but surely. Medium tank still in the backline over here, ravaging the base of Caligula in the backline. Maybe busy microing multiple things at once. Explaining the overwhelming of the pink commander here. Those rockets, very powerful, by the way, that metal extractor fires out. Sharpshooter even, on the low ground here. Firing up into the hillside. Sheldon built in a nice big circle over here. Lovely to see. I love a good formation as much as the next guy, but I'm not sure if that's the most efficient way of using those. Sheldon tend not to suffer in the same way that a lot of units do from being balled up. And it means that in many cases you can use them in a big ball just as effectively as if you spread them out correctly. However, it does make them more prone to those AoE attacks, right? That's the main reason why you wouldn't ball them up, but it just means that you're afforded the luxury of not having to worry about it as much, I would say, as much. This is a lot of bulls we've got here. How many is this? 8 bulls in total. 7,600 metal worth of those T2 heavy tanks. If they can jump on top of this, I think it's going to be great. They're going to absolutely shred apart those Sheldon. But if is a tricky word here. Well, there we go. We're starting to get to work on them at the very least. Hey, you know what? We cut quite a few of those numbers down. I wouldn't say quite in half, but definitely punching a hole in those Sheldon numbers. Starting to put in some work on it. A little bit of friendly fire right there from those, that singular Fat Boy. Very menacing on the front lines, but also very, very often is the case that the Fat Boy ends up shooting itself or its own teammates in the feet. Always difficult to tell whether that's well worth it or not, the Fat Boy. Oftentimes they're very flashy and they can melt away a T1 army, but then as soon as they start throwing ticks at you, you actually end up losing more of your own units than you ever actually killed. And there we go. Those bulls do indeed jump on top of this composition here, melting away not only the, a large portion at the very least of the southern section of Sheldon here, but also the entire northern section. If we get some res bots out here, if we start reclaiming, as UKF is doing right now, I think we're going to be in a pretty decent spot. But at least for the time being, it's going to be basically up to the backliners here for the red team in order to actually stay in this fight. Banshee sent across. That's a hero fighter pilot. 8 kills to that fighter's name. That's unheard of. Meanwhile, Commander goes down here to a whole bunch of T1 that's been pushing through here. A bunch of T1 medium tanks, to be precise. We also have some Wolverine contributing here, not to diminish their effect they've had across this battlefield, but certainly the medium tanks stealing the show a little bit here as they kill a T2 constructor, kill the Commander, kill the entire laboratory here. I'd love to see this build power taken down as well. One thing that the shell shockers are good for is that as soon as they fire, you don't have to worry about it anymore. They will either hit or they won't. You don't have to worry about the amount of damage you're going to do to a building. You've done all your damage in one big burst, which is, in some respects, useful. What do you mean, bro? I've been 1v3, cries out Teleologic. And I think that's probably correct here. We've got 1, 2, 3 commanders on the southern side here. Now, I will say, he's had Caligula down south here. And Caligula did get up to that T2 laboratory here. I didn't see any fiends ever produced out of it, but certainly we could have. Never a bad idea to go for a couple of those fiends as a Cortex commander. They're just obscenely powerful. Console eating up this wreckage field over here on the northern side. 7,500, 8,500 metal here. More being deposited as we watch. Oh, nuclear bomber coming in. We're sending it on a fight command. Okay. Not ideal. It's just going to target the first thing it sees once it gets over there, which may be the geothermal. We might luck out here as the... Oh, no, never mind. Yeah, there we go. Well, okay. Well, that was weird. The bomber appears to have run into the cliffside there, but I think it was fine. I think he managed to bounce off of it. This fighter pilot with 9 kills to his name, a gold star fighter pilot right here, needs to be treated with respect. That man has shot down a nuclear bomber. Not before it did all the damage, but, you know, certainly helped. Teleologic almost sniped right there. One of the last commanders for the red team, which is something that the red team definitely has to be a little bit aware of. They're certainly getting low in the commander count. Where is their other one? Ah, it's all the way in the back here. Nano Warrior hiding at the very last of the commanders here for the red team on the very back line. Max Chaos patching together this base, actually stealing this base here. We've got the SAM turret up now. That's quite funny. We've got the metal storage available. Maybe we'll resurrect that too. We've also got all these metal extractors, which could always be resurrected. That's a advanced metal extractor, actually, so it could be quite a lot of work. We've got some of those recluses, the all-terrain Weber spiders. Sorry, not Weber spiders, rocket spiders. Going to be climbing up the hillsides here and moving across the map right now. It's certainly doing a whole lot of damage. There's not really anything to stop these spiders from doing a whole bunch to the forces of Caligula right now. Teleologic is rebuilding. We're building a T1 vehicle bay. I guess the plan is to go into multiple T1 vehicle bay production. Maybe planning to spam out a whole bunch of rovers. Rovers can cross the river here, I'm guessing. Typically vehicles are able to cross where the bots are not, or specifically the ticks are not. A lot of these rocket spiders get melted away by the Quakers over here. Quite nice. Very, very nice hold. That actually did a whole lot more than I think Teleologic realized. If those spiders had broken through, it would have effectively backlined the entire red team here. It would have been an absolute slaughter, but I think that was just about as good a hold as you possibly could hope for. Yeah, indeed, we're going for multiple Rascal production out of these T1 laboratories here. Yeah, you can see, indeed. Commander doing the very best he can, trying to pump out units from both of these laboratories while also maintaining an eco, while also maintaining war on the front lines here. It's very stressful, very difficult to do. But here we go. The Quakers doing the very best they can. Sharpshooters take a direct hit. Well, if we could snipe those sharpshooters, I'm sure that the red commander would feel a whole lot better about this. Rover's doing an excellent job of distracting those sharpshooters from actually destroying a lot of the units over here, and certainly making for an impact on the front line by draining the shots out of those sharpshooter rifles. Quite difficult to push into basically any composition that includes sharpshooters, because you either lose half of your units or you lose almost all of your health on basically all of your units. Depends on how the Armada Commander micros it, but if microed properly, it hurts. It hurts pretty badly. Almost impossible to justify the cost. Spy tank moving across, though, will be spied by a whole bunch of turrets and blasted apart immediately. Little bit of a bummer there, but at least we're going for something here. It's the kind of comeback mechanic that you're definitely hoping to take advantage of here when you're in this sort of a position. I would definitely say the blue team looking a little bit stronger at the moment here. Currently, the metal definitely in the blue team's favor, I would say. 400 to 200, almost 100% more metal coming into the blue team's economy than the reds. Still, though, this metal economy going into T1 units, you're going to trade out so inefficiently. I guess we'll check out whatever is being pinged over here by Nano Warrior. It's a whole bunch of grunts, but maybe they don't know that. Yeah, actually, the red team probably doesn't know that. Unsure of what exactly is moving over in that direction here. They're going to spy that it's grunts and all will be well here, but certainly, definitely scary if you're watching that and you don't know. Maybe it's fiends, maybe it's Sheldons, maybe it's scuttles, who knows. Yeah, definitely well worth being aware of that. Good map awareness right there from Mana Warrior. Keeping his eyes all over the place. Easy to look away from your composition and suddenly you lose it all. Oftentimes what I end up doing is microing them back preemptively. Try and avoid losing them. Doesn't happen all the time. Just can't win all the battles, but definitely helps sometimes. Mitigate the risk of losing your entire army to looking away across the map for 30 seconds. Do I like this fight? I like the sumos. The sumos are definitely putting in a significant amount of work here. Blasting apart those heavy tanks. The T1 is not doing much except for the fact that it's drawing a lot of the firepower away from the sumos. Oh no, the sumos are all grouped up now. The AoE is doing tremendous amounts of work over here. That's no good. Shield generator actually coming up here for max chaos. 30 seconds out on that shield generator. They are taking fire. Oh no, the T2 constructor goes down. It's going to take even longer now. Yeah, those Quakers are firing away. They do shut down the shield generator. That's quite nice. Fighter plane gets shot down by the Screamer over here. The sumos marching forward. Sumos are sort of the they sort of act similarly to the Centurion, where they move very slowly and they fire a very consistent weapon. Very, very powerful in that respect. LRPC firing away over here, by the way. Nuclear bombers looking to try and clean all this up. Looks like we do have an attack command over here, so at the very least we're going to be dropping some bombs over here, even though, well, we've been well bombed. Yeah, it looks like those SAM turrets will eventually shoot all of this down here, each of them earning a, well, 2 bronze chevrons for such a thing. Termites blasting away at these grunts. Actually taking a really nice trade right there. Yeah, those termites actually melted away the entire grunt force over here. That's quite nice. Tanks rolling up the side, trying desperately to do all this. This would be an excellent place to try and land a massive connection with the nuclear bomber here. We are looking at 13,000 metal in this composition right here, although the core of it is probably these bulls over here, which is more than half of it. 9,000, almost 10,000 metal tied up in T2 units right there. An excellent place to park a T2 nuclear bomber. Max Chaos still trying to push the aggression over here. Getting those sumos out as quickly as possible here, using the reconstituted laboratories. Meanwhile, Razorbacks have been produced and they're sent across the map. Schmuen definitely ready to end this game right here. We don't have T3 production out yet from Mana Warrior, who's the only one with a reasonably tremendous economy in the backlines over here. Starting up an APHIS, in fact, at the moment. But yeah, there's nothing to shut down these Razorbacks. No spy bots, no scuttles, no comeback mechanics available right now. Teleologic's commander just taking the brunt of those laser blasts, and indeed the red commander goes down. The Razorbacks march in and manage to blow apart the red base. Spy tank over there witnessing it all in 4K here, reporting back to base that the red team, or the red player rather, has been completely obliterated by the Razorbacks. Killer Storm says, 1 sec, I'll try something. Little does he know, he's about to be beset upon by 2 Razorback, already of which have destroyed the major infrastructure here for the Tan player. At the very least, the plans for the major infrastructure over here. There is a pulsar up and running. Interesting. It can be quite good at shutting down these Razorbacks, but already the damage has basically been done. Hard to say there's any amount of damage that would come back from this. Yeah, Razorbacks already melting basically the entire base over here. Pulsar doesn't quite have the range to fire at them either. Mech Warrior. Oh, the last commander does go down right here. I think the red team resigned just before the last commander went down, but indeed it will be sniped right here as those Razorbacks punch into the back line and manage to secure victory for this blue team here in this 5 versus 5. I enjoy the 5 versus 5 format. I think it's pretty nice. It applies just enough pressure to each player to extend themselves or adapt themselves to playing maybe 2 versus 1 or 1 versus 2. Either way here, I think it's quite fun, but I always want to hear what you guys have to say down below in the comment section, of course, so feel free to let me know how you feel about the format. But other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the very next Beyond All Reason video. Peace out, folks.